The patty melt is a wonderful sandwich, and it requires a couple things to make it great. Today, I'm going to give you a few tips to make yours amazing. The patty melt does not require a ton of prep. Really, all you need in your kitchen is good rye bread, American cheese, some beef that can either be ground or you can grind it yourself, and some onions that you're gonna have to caramelize. Now, that is probably the most difficult part of this entire sandwich, but once you get that down, you can make these on a weeknight. So today, I'm gonna give you a few tips on how to make yours amazing, from correctly making the caramelized onions, to what size the patty needs to be, and how to cook the finished product. Let's get cooking.
We're gonna start with the caramelized onions. These can be a little elusive, and they do take a while. They also require you to be at the stove or around the stove for something like 30 to 40 minutes, so definitely be prepared. Start with some onions, and you can do yellow or white. Yellow will be sweeter, but to be honest, these white ones will be plenty sweet, so you don't necessarily need them to be yellow or Spanish onions. I cut mine to get the skin and the root off, and then in half, and then slice the half into rings. The onions are going to cook down quite a bit here, so cuts should be smallish, but don't worry about them being perfect. But the more you cut the surface area of the onion, the more there is to brown, so keep that in mind. I put them in a big bowl and I toss them with some salt before they go in the big pan on the stove, just because I know it's going to be crowded in there and I'm going to lose some if I toss it, so I do this ahead of time on the counter. To a warm pan, I add 3 tablespoons of butter, 1 for each onion, and then I pour in the onions. I put the cover on. Now this is a great step because it basically cooks the onion all the way through and helps it release a lot of that moisture. I let it cook like that, covered, on medium heat for about 15 minutes. Check in every 5 minutes or so. Now, my camera overheated here, and I lost part of the footage. But when they start to look like they're cooked all the way through, take the lid off and then cook off any water that's in the pan. Now, they are going to start to brown soon, so don't walk away. Once they start to brown, you can deglaze the pan with a little water just to get any brown bits up off the bottom of the pan so they don't burn. And you can see here, I just deglazed it. As the water evaporates, the sound will change a little. The snaps are going to get louder. And you're going to want to keep an eye on it now and stir it every minute or two. If you keep the heat moderate and stir frequently, you shouldn't need to deglaze. But if it does start to brown a little, don't be afraid to drop a couple of tablespoons of water in there. As it starts to break the onion down, it's going to start to shrink and become more brown, and then it's eventually going to smear a little. Now you know you're close. At this point, if they're completely broken down, you want to taste them to see what they taste like. If they're really sweet or really cloying, you can always deglaze with a little balsamic vinegar, which is going to balance that sweetness and also give it a nice color. I pull these onions off the stove and put them in a container. Now, onto the burger. If you like a medium burger or a medium rare burger, you can grind your own if you have a grinder. In fact, I would encourage you to do that. The more cuts on the meat at a large supermarket butcher, the better chance to get a nasty bacteria in there. I never cook supermarket beef that's ground less than medium well. You grind your own, just buy a chuck steak and don't cut off the fat and throw it away. Use the fat in the burger. Burgers need fat to stay together and have a great flavor and mouthfeel. Okay, so there's 2 important things to remember when you're making a burger. The first is specific to this sandwich, but it's also a good rule to keep in mind. See what you're serving the burger on. Look at what size and shape it is. Burgers will shrink a little, so make it as big or a little bigger than the bread. I'm using rye bread because it's traditional on a patty melt. And this burger is going to be about 1.5 times the weight of a normal burger. And I'm going to shape it to about the same size on a pan. You'll see later that the burger is going to fit perfectly on the bread and not be like some circle of meat surrounded by a moat of bread like the Earl of Sandwich. Second is to keep the burger cold while forming and then cold before it goes on the stove. Don't let them sit out. This isn't a bacteria thing. It's more about how the burger stays juicy, doesn't lose all that fat to the bottom of the pan when you cook it. As you cook, some of the fat is going to render. And if that fat is warm, there's a better chance that more of it is going to render off and the burger is going to come out dry. Once these are done, set them on a wire rack and construct the sandwich. Now I butter each piece of bread, and you can brush it with melted butter, but I just like buttering it directly. I put the bottom halves butter side down on a wire rack so I can build it and not hold it. When I put it on the wire rack, there's less surface there for it to be in contact, say if I were just using the pan, so it's easier to pick up afterwards. I use American cheese, which is basically Velveeta that's a little more solid. It's a great melty cheese for this. Now, if you use a high-end cheese, it may melt a little weird, and it could also sweat, and that is really unappetizing and doesn't look super great. American cheese melts great every time. I put the cheese down and then a layer of onion on top so that that cheese can get warm and melt first and then infuse with that onion. Next, the burgers go on. Look at how perfect these fit the bread. Now, this is what a circle-shaped burger looks like, and I can tell you many restaurants, even high-end ones, serve it like this. Don't do that. If you're feeling saucy, you can always add more onion to the top here and then cheese if you like to the onion. But there's something about the ratio I'm using here. There's a good mix of meaty burger, onion, and cheese with bread. Now, I drop this right into a warm nonstick pan and I lay these in and toast them. The pan should not be ripping hot, and use a medium heat to make sure you give the bread enough time to toast while heating the cheese. The rest should be serving temp if you worked quickly beforehand. Now just serve it. This sandwich is amazing. Also, rye bread toasted on this is genuinely the perfect choice. If you aren't a fan of rye, try seedless rye to see if you just don't like caraway seeds. There is a great sourness and hardiness to this bread that is hard to replicate on buns and other breads.
Thanks so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, subscribe. Just one up thumb, one share, one comment below can get my video in someone else's feed, and that helps the channel immensely. So please consider doing that. Subscribe if you haven't. I know I took a little break over Christmas break. I had gotten sick and my voice was gone, so it was very difficult for me to record. But I'm back and hopefully recording some more videos very soon. If you have something very specific you'd like me to try, leave it in the comments. I'm looking for suggestions. All right, that's going to be it for today. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you next time. Until then, season liberally.